Hello again, Thank You Danny here. I just rented Final Fantasy XIII last night and I played a couple hours of it, and while I was at work today, my friend sent me this article about the game, and it's an interview with the Final Fantasy XIII director, Motomu Toriyama, and I thought it was really interesting and decided I'll put up a discussion video and hopefully get some feedback from all of my subscribers or anyone watching this video just about the Final Fantasy series in general and also Final Fantasy XIII. So the first question that he answers is, does traditional turn-based combat even have a place in Final Fantasy anymore? And he answers with, if we were to implement a turn-based system on a high-definition console, the time the characters stand completely still on standby would seem too long, and the battle scenes would not appear visually realistic. And my reaction to this is that he's trying to take the core element of the combat that's been in Final Fantasy and made it one of the greatest RPG series of all time. And he's trying to make the series more mainstream, I think, and make it more into an action game. If I want to play an action game, I would go out and get Devil May Cry or God of War. But if I want to play an RPG, I want to have that strategy element involved. And whenever I was playing the first couple hours of Final Fantasy XIII, I could have run through that linear section in the beginning and just mashed the X button and I would have survived. It didn't feel to me that there was very much strategy, and I'm sure the system gets more strategic down the line with all the paradigm and stuff like that, but it'll just never be the same as a turn-based system. So I don't know how that will do money-wise, but for me, that's really killing the RPG, and I don't have much desire to play it. So the next thing that he says is, in the Final Fantasies on previous non-high definition consoles, we were able to kind of take everyone's ideas and include them into the games. I call it the bento box system, where you have all the different little things in there. So we have mini games in towns where you're able to talk to all the townspeople, but with the HD console you're not really able to do that because it takes too long to develop. Half the fun is being able to go into a town and you can interact with the people and explore, gather items, buy different items, and be able to interact with a whole entire city and feel like you were part of the environment. So without towns, I don't really understand why he would take them out. He says that it would be too difficult to develop, but you could even just have text dialogues or something like that. I think it's just that he's focusing so much on graphics and voice acting and trying to have voice acting for everything that he doesn't want to use text dialogues, and instead of changing it to that, he just completely wiped out towns from the game. So that's another thing that really bugs me about it. And the last thing is kind of, it has to do with this game, but it's also with other games. And he says, however, well, before I go into this, basically in the article he says that they've developed the whole system for the game, so the next Final Fantasies, they already have the system built, so they might be able to add towns and things like that into the next game, because they won't have to waste the time on developing the original system. So here he says, however, this will not continue in future games. Now that we have the base technology, the next time you see a Final Fantasy, we might be able to pack in more of those elements that existed in the past. And I also think that the game doesn't need to have all those items in the future. We can create additional downloadable content for people to add. It doesn't have to come with the game itself. So to me that seems like he's putting out the game, he knows that it doesn't have everything that he'd like to be in it, and he's just saying that he'll just release downloadable content later on that people can download that should have been in the game originally. And that's just an issue with all games nowadays with the downloadable content, but that's a whole different discussion. And the last thing he said is, when asked if the team should have striven to improve elements such as towns rather than cut them out, Toriyama laughed and said, "You can wait longer for the game where we can improve these elements." So basically he's saying that they already made this game and they had to develop that base system and the base technology, so he couldn't put towns, a core element of RPGs, into the game. And in the next Final Fantasy we might get those elements back. So to me, this article is really summing up what is happening to RPGs nowadays. I haven't really been enjoying many of them. There have been some good RPGs, but overall I think a lot of the developers are focusing on graphics for RPGs. They're just making games that look great, and a lot of them really do. Final Fantasy XIII looks remarkable, but it's missing core elements of an RPG. So if a game doesn't have the elements that are going to keep you interested, and it doesn't matter how nice the game looks, it's just not going to be up to par with the older PlayStation 1 Final Fantasies or Super Nintendo. So that's my opinion on this article. It's really been bugging me just about RPGs in general, and I've always thought about putting up a video on it. So I'd like to hear what other YouTubers think, all of my subscribers. Just leave comments or post a video response what you think about RPG genre nowadays, and especially the Final Fantasy series. After playing Final Fantasy XII, I already felt that this was going to be happening, and I could tell that they were trying to make it more mainstream, and I absolutely hated it. And I was really hoping that Final Fantasy XIII would fix that and come back to some of the original core elements that we all loved from the Final Fantasy series. And before I end the video, I'm not saying that Final Fantasy isn't going to be good, because I played these first 4 hours and it seems like a pretty good game. Like right now, up to where I'm at, I'd probably give it about an 8. But if I was going to score it as an RPG and as a Final Fantasy game, I'd probably give it a 5. It's lacking so many elements that I've come to expect from a good Final Fantasy game, and I just really can't appreciate the game because I'm always going to compare it to the older Final Fantasies. So that's my opinion on it. Leave comments and video responses. I'd like to hear what everyone thinks. I'm Dinky Dana, and thanks for watching.